Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pumps and Politics. Today is October 20th. We're getting close to the end of the month, but we are at the beginning of the show. We're so happy that you have chosen to hang out with us this morning. It's a rough one, y'all. We're just going to start off by saying that it's a rough one. I got my ladies around me. Lainey's in the house co-hosting with me, and
Good morning. It is a rough one, and I don't
it
know
is.
why.
I'm okay. I was running a little behind this morning. I'm okay. I was telling everybody before we started the show. I think she normally has her green juice, her little concoction, her morning
My morning
magic potion.
My magic potion and my juicer died over the weekend. So
R.I.P.
I'm
juicer.
I'm a little sad. So now I've got to figure out. Do I get a Ninja, one of those little Ninja blenders? Do I get what do I do now?
You know what? I bought
stressful.
I bought the magic bullet.
The magic bullet.
I got it. I've always wanted one. They're always like $100-something. I came across them in Bed Bath & Beyond one time, I think, for $40.
Oh.
And I didn't want to spend $40 then. I was like, this is $20 worth, but that was the best $40 I've ever spent. So I'm good with the magic bullet.
You good? Okay, so then maybe maybe that's what I'll do.
I've done many things. I've made baby food, smoothies. I've made marinades in there, like some spinach and some other little blah, blah, blah.
Then, yeah, okay. Bed Bath & Beyond, y'all might see me later.
There you
Gotta
go.
go online and get my, what are they, a $5 coupon they give you?
Yes,
they send them
I
all
get
the
those
time.
all the time.
So
See, she's coming back.
I'm coming back.
Even if we talk about the magic potion, she's coming back.
a little ginger, a little kale. Yes,
Little
come
something,
on.
something.
A little something.
All right, well, we have a pretty full show for you all. Lainey, there's a lot of news going on right
this
now.
news cycle is ridiculous. Can we can we tackle one issue at a time?
No, it's not possible.
Everything is coming, and you know how you said today was the 20th. What does that make it, like 60 days till Christmas? Just want to make sure y'all know. So y'all need to go out and go get Christmas shopping.
We are coming on the end. We're coming towards the end of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we give a huge shout out to all of those breast cancer survivors.
Absolutely.
Those that are currently battling the disease, those that have survived it, who have come out of it. We give our hugs and kisses to those who did not make it, who are fighting for others in heaven right now. And also for the family members
the families,
of those.
It's rough on the families. You know, that's a big chunk of, you know, your life, your time, your energy, you know, having to support that person. And I'm sure that person doesn't want to feel like they are a burden.
Right.
Right. So to all the support groups out there that are helping.
And make sure you do your part, whether it be participating in the walks, as some have already happened, donating, or just supporting those, and doing what you can to take care of your own health. So we just want to for sure make mention of that, and also knowing that the numbers are disproportionate for those that are diagnosed with breast cancer, those that die from breast cancer. It impacts women across the board and men, but at disproportionate rates, it does impact African American women. But there is stuff that you can do. And also want to mention, as we go into headlines, there was a very popular young lady who passed away from cancer. And I'm trying to find out exactly what kind. I think it was endometrial cancer, I believe they said.
The model?
Yes, plus-size model Joanne Borgella. I think is how you pronounce her name. 32 years old.
32.
Very popular. Says she was on American Idol. At one point, she also was a very popular Ashley Stewart model, which I love me some Ashley Stewart. So, beautiful, beautiful young lady who gracefully battled, did a lot on social media, and was very public with her fight. So,
yeah, my daughter's 25 and just found out one of her best friends in college was just diagnosed with stage 1 colon cancer.
Oh my!
And I mean, at 25, that's things you don't even think about.
Yeah, your mind. That's the last thing.
That so it's important for everybody to listen to their bodies. I know I drink the green drinks and do all that other kind of stuff, but it's because there's a lot of toxins out here that we need to fight these toxins.
Eat healthy.
So eat healthy.
Do right.
Yep. Every now and again.
Yeah, you can cheat every once in a while. It's okay.
It's just and that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a treat.
Yes, it is, and it takes care of the body. It does. But so another big headline, Lainey, that I heard is just crazy. This is crazy, and for some, it's going to make them mad. Now, let me just first say we are going to take up Ebola today. Don't think that we've ignored it because we haven't brought it up. Oh. But we have a special segment coming up right after this break. We are going to take up the Ebola crisis, and we're going to hear from a doctor at Vanderbilt Hospital here based in Nashville, who's going to come on and talk with us, just looking at dispelling a lot of some of the debunking some of the myths.
Ebola myths, because there's so
Exactly.
many out there.
A whole
and it's
lot.
just, for us to be a nation of 11 billion in the United States, and for 2 people to come down with Ebola, and now you've got everybody who's like, if somebody coughs, people are like, oh my God, it's Ebola, I can't go, and
Right.
so we really do need, because there's been a lot of fear mongering in the media, and a lot of that is to take the focus off of other things that are going on, so
Right.
we know, you really have to be cognizant of what is really going on and how to protect yourself and wash your hands and stuff that you should be doing anyway.
We're going to take that up in the second break, but real quick, and I don't want to talk too much about Ebola right now because we're going to have our next segment. But one thing I found out, I knew that using hand soap, like the bar soap, always grossed me out. But there was a fact, as they were discussing Ebola, that's one of the nastiest things that you can do, especially in a public place, using bar soap, because it still holds all those germs, which
I've
is so
always
gross
wondered
to me.
about
Use the
that.
pump.
Where
nasty.
did when you use a bar soap, where do the germs go? I mean, do you rinse
Right
off
on the bar soap.
On the bar
stays
soap.
there. Mm-hmm. So how clean are your hands really?
Right.
All right. Here's one of the crazy things that I heard about. The Nazis. There are some Nazis who have been receiving millions of dollars in Social Security over the years. So they've been receiving money from the United States, Lainey.
What?
Yes,
Wait a minute.
and they are still receiving the money today. And they said that the money, and let me go back to this story, the payments underwritten by American taxpayers, meaning when our money is taken, some of that's going to these Nazis, right?
Well-
and it said that they were able to make those payments because of a loophole in the U.S. Justice Department. And they used this to try and leverage, to try and get some information out of them. And they said, if you leave, if you go ahead and leave now, or at least promise to leave, then we'll give you this Social Security. So
are they sending? Okay, so these are expelled Nazis, and so they're not in the United States. So they're getting checks in other countries.
yes, they're still getting money from us.
But we've
Yes.
got American citizens who can't get Social Security,
Y'all be the judge. We just put it out there for you.
and they're getting $1,500 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it says among those receiving benefits were armed SS troops who guarded the network of Nazi camps where millions of Jews were killed, a rocket scientist who used slave laborers to advance his research in the Third Reich, and a Nazi collaborator who engineered the arrest and execution of thousands of Jews in Poland.
Well, one of the sons of one of the men who were receiving it said that this isn't coming out of other people's pockets. He paid into the system. But no, it's still coming out of the United States citizens' pockets. And he was a Nazi. I mean, at the end of the day, he was a Nazi.
But this kind of goes back to the question. There are a number of things that happen that we don't know about that's done to bring about international peace and settle unrest and to protect us. But, we
Well,
don't.
I'm a little curious. Can prisoners get Social Security?
Laney, you going to a whole...
I'm just, do they qualify?
After
They get out of prison and they've served their time and they get a job, can they get? I mean, I know they can't vote. Some of them can't vote. So do you qualify for Social Security?
That's a really good question.
I'm just saying.
Things open up Pandora's box. Another big headlines we're looking at, we have our monitor here going, the Heather Graham case, the University of Virginia, I believe it is, student who went missing a few weeks, it was last month actually, went missing last month, and there was a man who was seen following her. He was arrested. He was connected to another murder, but they were searching a certain area, a wooded area over the weekend. Some human remains were found. They have not identified that as her body, but they have
found
idea
some-
enough
Yeah,
to
they
stop
said
the
they found
search
some
for her.
black pants, and that was the last picture of her. She had on like a silver lame top and some black like stretchy pants, I guess, and so those were found next to the remains.
And get this, they did contact her parents though, but after they found it. But get this, Lainey, the and I got to find his name. The suspect who they're holding said he's not going to tell them anything about this body that was found until after they find the remains. So it's like, is he playing with it? Because we don't know if that's her for sure. We don't know if he's playing around or if he really does know something. So I don't know.
This, and I mean, with him being linked to another case and them finding the DNA, this is all.
Yeah.
It's very sad and tragic, especially when you think about, you're sending your child away to college, and this is a time when kids want to go out and be free and do things. It's really important that college students realize that you need a buddy system. I know you think you're grown and, but you need a buddy system, and you need a system of checks and balances. If I'm going to call you when I arrive here, and if you do not hear from me, that is a problem. And you have to make sure that you travel in groups. Your safety is paramount. And I know that a lot of times when younger people feel invincible, and, you're away from the parents, away from college, you're away from rules. But it's time you have to instill some rules up in yourself and in your group of friends, because you got to care.
And like you said, parents trust that to an extent that the university will provide, although not completely their responsibility, that the university will provide some sense of safety and security for their children. So also there's the search now going on for this man who was accused of shooting a state trooper recently. They're still searching for him.
In Pennsylvania.
Yes.
He's living in the Pocono Mountains and
knows it well.
As someone who's been to the Poconos several times and has been in those forests, it's number one, it's cold. The Poconos are cold. I mean, you're in the mountains, but you have to really be a serious survivalist to be able to survive in these mountains. It's not an easy terrain.
Yeah, it's pretty tricky, but they said that he knows that area well, and he also was in took up rifle shooting. I guess what's the proper reference? But he learned how to shoot rifles. It was in some kind of club or something when he was in high school. So he not only knows the wooded area where they believe he's hiding out. Yes, essentially, yes, he was a marksman. Why he targeted this trooper, no one knows yet. But we're trying to figure that out. We have a bunch of headlines. There are a couple other things that we've got to talk about, Lainey.
Yes, we do. Did you see about the pumpkin riot?
Yes, I actually wrote a story about that.
I love it.
Yes, hold on, which is so funny to me. We're going to take that up and a few more headlines. You all stay tuned with us. Again, we're talking Ebola and Amendment 1. Should the government have the right to tell you what to do with your body? We're going to take it up coming after the break.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better. And kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor. Because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give. Advocate.
Just now, another kid dropped out of school. There's one every 20 seconds. Over 200 kids an hour. That adds up to nearly 5,000 kids every school day.
If we do nothing, 3.5 million kids won't receive a diploma over the next 4 years. But there is someone who can change that, and that someone is you. United Way knows that kids who have a caring adult in their life are more likely to make it. So make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because the path to success or failure starts long before graduation day. And the difference between a graduate and a dropout could be you. Take the pledge to volunteer now at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Pumps and Politics. Like we said, it's pretty heavy today, Lainey. A lot
is
in
going
the
on.
news on both ends.
It's like we need a 2-hour show.
Well, since you say that, we did. If you'll give me more of your morning, if I can invade, your time
If y'all could
even
get here
more.
at 7.
Oh, so then we'll just be doing 1 hour still. But again, on a more serious note, we are taking up a really, really important headline right now, one that everyone is talking about, one that has rattled the walls a little bit, if you will, of the White House, as President Obama has named his new czar of Ebola. We're talking Ebola right now. We see that there are a number well, not a number, but there are some folks who have traveled, who have possibly or there was a chance of exposing large groups of people. And there's just, as you mentioned earlier, Lainey, pandemonium. And one question that everyone is asking is, what is this thing and how can we stop it? And then a lot of folks here in Nashville wondering, are we even ready? And it's a valid question. And we have with us Dr. Melanie Swift. She's the medical director at the Vanderbilt Occupational Health Clinic, again, based here in Nashville. Dr. Swift, how are you this morning?
Hi, good morning. I'm fine. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time. And we just want to go ahead and jump right into this, Dr. Swift. Is this something for us to really be in panic about?
Oh, absolutely not. There's so much in the news right now, and it's understandable that people are concerned, and we should all be concerned about the epidemic going on in West Africa. But here in the United States, there's absolutely no reason for people to be concerned about their own safety or their own risk of getting Ebola.
And Dr. Swift, what are you all doing? I know Vanderbilt typically takes the lead nationally in a lot of health research and health application in terms of information sharing practices that you all have mastered here, and no doubt the lead here in the local area in the region. What is Vanderbilt doing to prepare as a just in case? Just in case.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. One of the things that we have put in place is screening of patients who are coming in through our first portals of entry. That's the emergency department, that's the walk-in clinics, where individuals who come in to be seen because they're sick are asked a series of questions routinely, including their travel history and their exposure to people who have recently traveled. And that is of prime importance for Ebola and also for other emerging illnesses, as we saw this summer with MERS and as we've seen in the past with other illnesses.
Can we talk about a little bit, even though there's very little chance of most Americans being infected with Ebola, can we just talk a little bit about how do you protect yourself against Ebola, just to assuage some of the fears and give out correct information?
Absolutely. So we know quite a bit about Ebola because it is not new. It was first experienced in the 1970s. So while there's still some unknowns, there is a great deal that is known. And it is important to know that this disease is not contagious in the incubating stage, but when a person has not yet become symptomatic, or in the very early symptomatic stages. When people hit several days into their course of illness and they begin to have lots of vomiting and diarrhea, that's the stage at which people are contagious, and the virus is present in those secretions, in those body fluids. So the body fluids of someone who is sick with Ebola are contagious. People who are starting to feel unwell but are not yet having those bodily fluids are not contagious. So this is why I'm not concerned about, for instance, people who were on the airplane with the nurse who was starting to become ill. It's the healthcare workers who are helping those patients manage those copious amounts of body fluids. Those are the people at the highest risk of exposure.
Dr. Swift, let me ask you, as we analyze, we go back, of course, hindsight is 20/20. As we go back and look at what happened in the Dallas hospital, and we heard from the nurse who was speaking out about, on behalf of some other nurses, how they felt like they were not properly prepared. From obviously this is an area where you are an expert in. What are your thoughts about how the hospital in Dallas responded to Thomas Duncan when he got there the first time, the second time, and then thereafter?
Well, you're right. Hindsight is 2020, and I think that like many places would be, they were scrambling to catch up with this rapidly evolving situation. At the first visit to the emergency department, when it wasn't flagged that Mr. Duncan had, the doctor was not aware he'd been to Liberia and was at risk. He was treated like any other patient during that visit, and that would mean not gloves, not masks, no special personal protective equipment. It's notable that no one who contacted him and cared for him during that outpatient first emergency visit became infected. But after he became violently ill with all the bodily fluids, that's when the risk of transmission occurred. You know, fluids are difficult to manage, and these are lots and lots of fluids. And, I know every time I wear a white blouse and I pour my morning coffee, I'm reminded of how easy it is to splash things where you didn't intend to splash them.
Exactly. And
when you're talking about tens and 20s of liters of fluid and doing medical procedures on a patient, this is where the greatest risk for splash is. And you're not always aware of every single drop that flies your way, especially when the patient's vomiting and in trouble and you're trying to help them. So I think we're learning, and the CDC is taking that information extremely seriously, and new guidance is being developed as we speak to protect those employees who are handling all those fluids and need to have really that splash protection so that they can't get these unrecognized splashes. We don't know exactly how the contamination occurred. It could have been a splash that got through the protective gear, or it could have been self-contamination while taking off contaminated gear. And when you're removing all of these layers and it's an unfamiliar process to you, yes, there is a risk for contaminating yourself on the outside of the gear.
I think one of the most important things that we've learned is that the family that Thomas Duncan was actually staying with, they've all been taken out of quarantine after 21 days. And these were people who had intimate contact with him, his girlfriend, and all of them have been released back into the general population with no symptoms of Ebola and testing negative for Ebola. So I think that should help to alleviate some of the fears that a lot of people are having, especially what you were saying, with the people traveling on the airplane and then the other nurse, or was it the lab technician who went on the cruise?
Right.
That they, quarantined them on the cruise for the poor child on the cruise.
Exactly. And that's very powerful reassurance, I should hope.
So, let me ask you, Dr. Swift. So one of the things that I heard, there's a medical professional who said, we're more concerned right now about the flu than we are Ebola. What are your thoughts about that? About that remark?
Well, that when you look at risk, people tend to look at only one aspect of risk, which is the severity of the event. So Ebola is a much more severe outcome than getting the flu. It's just got a much higher fatality rate per case. However, very, 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 very few people are going to get Ebola in the United States. But every year, tens of thousands of people, actually hundreds of thousands of people, get influenza. So even though the case fatality rate for influenza is less than 0.1%, that still counts for many, many, many more deaths than we will see from Ebola in this country. There is also vaccine for influenza, which lowers your risk both of getting the disease and of dying of the disease if you get it. And we don't have that protection for Ebola. So I think Ebola is scarier for people. Flu is something that most people do survive if they get it. And so people don't see it as much of a threat. But just like those statistics that say you're much more likely to die in a car crash than you are in an airplane crash, because you're certainly exposed a lot more, you're much more likely to die of influenza than you are of Ebola.
Well, recently they just said the other day, or actually this morning when I was watching the news, they were talking about how Nigeria has totally eradicated Ebola from their population. And so, this is something that everybody is working towards. And I think that as we come together, we need to see what are the best practices to rid the world of Ebola.
Exactly.
What do you think about the appointment, Dr. Swift, of as they're calling him, the Ebola czar that President Obama named? Some are saying he's catching a lot of criticism for that he should have been a doctor, a medical doctor. Do you think that it was necessary to have a medical doctor? What are your thoughts about that? Especially as we look to trying to really get rid of this and calm the panic. Do we need a medical doctor kind of leading up this effort?
Well, I think it is important that the public have good quality medical information. It is also important that is communicated skillfully. So not everyone who has the medical information understands how mass communications work and how the infrastructure of the country's emergency response system works. So I think that it's going to take more than one person, and whoever is in that lead position on point on Ebola will certainly have a multidisciplinary team supporting him or her. I think it's a him.
It's a him.
And that, of course, will include medical experts, but it's never going to be the voice of one person or the brain of one person to lead us on this.
Dr. Swift, let me ask you real quick. So what is the standard practice? And, I know that the Metro Health Department is doing a lot. I know you all are doing a lot, as you mentioned. If someone does walk into, say, Skyline or Summit or whatever it might be, is there a protocol in place that says, obviously there's some questions that everyone's been told to ask and some signs and symptoms to look for. Are they going to be sent directly to Vanderbilt, or everyone's going to have their own practice within the hospital? Do you know? I'm not sure if you can really speak to that, but you may have some of that information.
At this point, that patient should be put in an isolation room, isolated from the other patients, and should be interviewed further by staff in that isolation space. And then telephone consultation with the state health department to determine whether further specific Ebola testing is necessary. And that testing at this point is being done at the CDC for our state. The state lab may develop the capacity to do that pretty soon. But right now, our public health authorities facilitate that testing. And then if a case of Ebola were confirmed, then of course each hospital would need to look at their capability of taking care of that patient, and a decision would be made with the public health authorities' advice on where that patient should best be cared for.
I think one of the things that we all must remember is that as we become a more global society, different types of things are going to happen, and we have to be vigilant and, take precautions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep. And not panic. I think your first point is that things at first may seem extremely scary, and then as we learn more, and there's always more information that we need to know that will help us know how to protect ourselves and keep our communities safe.
Right.
And we can't hear that if we're panicking.
Yeah, fear-mongering is not the way to go.
Right.
Dr. Swift, we thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate the information. We're feeling a lot smarter, and I feel a little more at ease this morning as you have helped to calm my fears. We thank you so much for joining us, and is it okay if we call on you again if we need you?
Absolutely.
Dr. Swift, have a great morning. Everyone, stay tuned. We're going to take up another big headline that's hitting your televisions, radio stations like this one, and obviously the newspaper. Amendment 1. What does it say? What does it mean? What does it mean to vote yes or no? We're gonna clarify all of that. We have Councilwoman Erica Gilmore, who is going to be in studio with us here in just a minute. Everyone, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
My name is Dale Pazinski. I'm 19 years old, and this is how I live united. I've always been kind of a computer geek, and I found a way to use those skills to help the homeless in my community. For people facing hard times, computer skills and a basic resume are so important. It may seem like a small thing, but it makes a huge difference in people's lives. So with United Way, I created a program where I work with the homeless. Together, we go through their whole job history, write a resume, and then save it on their very own USB drive. We provide workbooks and training certificates. I even budgeted for cupcakes so we can celebrate as a class when one of our people gets a job. That's huge. When somebody says, "Hey man, that job that you helped me apply for, I got it." That's what Living United feels like to me. My name is Dale Pazinski. I help people achieve financial independence. So I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Just now, another kid dropped out of school. There's one every 20 seconds. Over 200 kids an hour. That adds up to nearly 5,000 kids every school day.
If we do nothing, 3.5 million kids won't receive a diploma over the next 4 years. But there is someone who can change that. And that someone is you. United Way knows that kids who have a caring adult in their life are more likely to make it. So make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because the path to success or failure starts long before graduation day. And the difference between a graduate and a dropout could be you. Take the pledge to volunteer now at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Nurse, I need you to apply pressure to the head wound until I can get to it. I'm concerned she's lost too much blood.
Oh, no.
You in the corner, who are you? You're not supposed to be here.
She's my girlfriend, Doctor.
You need to wait out in the waiting room.
Please, Doctor, I want to stay with her.
Look, she's been badly injured. So if you want to do what's best for her, you need to let us do our work.
Please, Doctor, she has to be okay. I didn't mean to do this. I love her.
Wait a second. You were the driver?
Yes, but I didn't mean to. I swear, we went to dinner. I was just buzzed. I only had a few drinks.
Just buzzed? Why didn't you tell us that? In that case, your girlfriend is fine.
Hey, sweetie. I feel great. You want to get out of here?
I can't believe this. Really, Doctor? She's really okay?
What, are you kidding? No, not really. Nurse, get me a suture kit. Stat.
Buzzed driving. Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
And welcome back to Pumps and Politics. We took up Ebola. Now we're taking up another really big topic, another very important topic here in Tennessee, and one that a lot of people have spoken out about. Even the Duggars came to town and spoke out about it. And as we know, they have 19, I think now,
and counting
children, 19 and counting. Yes, a lot of children. And speaking of children, as we're watching our headlines, they have announced the due date for William and Kate's baby in April.
Oh, I'm an April baby, so come on.
Are
April.
you?
Yeah. Royalty's born in April, so yes, let's go. Let's go.
Well, let's just go royalty in A months. I'm an A baby as well, as I call myself. I was born in August. So
I have an August baby.
Oh, bless you. I know we can be
Ooh,
challenging.
Yes,
but,
Lord Jesus.
What part of the month? Beginning?
She's beginning August.
She's
the
a
5th.
Leo?
Yes.
Oh, that's my dad's birthday, August 5th, and I'm August 6th.
Yeah,
she's a beautiful person, so
Uh-huh.
I'll give you my prayers. I know how
Moving
we are.
on.
Moving on. But speaking of birth or just being pregnant, there's a very important topic that is on your ballot coming up. Amendment 1 that is up for a vote right now. There is the question or the appeal to vote yes or to vote no on Amendment 1. But what does Amendment 1 say? That's the thing that we want to really debunk today. To help us discuss that, we have with us Councilwoman Erica Gilmore, who is familiar with our radio show. Welcome her back, everybody.
Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here today, ladies.
Wonderful.
You're discussing some great topics, very informed, very controversial, as you said. Today we're talking about Amendment 1 that deals with a female's right in her reproductive system, which is very important. And at this point, it's before the legislature. And if people are to vote yes, they would take away the power from a female to make choices on whether she should be able to have an abortion or not. And if they vote no, it still keeps the power with the female to make an informed decision. And we do not want people in government. It expands government. It's something that's very personal. And it's also a safety issue as well, making those type of decisions for women.
And let's really break that down. And Lainey,
Right.
we had to kind of walk through a lot of the language. So essentially, Amendment 1 says that you will no longer be allowed to, as a woman, be allowed to have an abortion unless a doctor says that basically your health is being compromised, that your life as the mother carrying the baby is in danger. Then they can approve an abortion. Are we correct, or is there a little
No,
murkiness
the way,
in some-
yeah, at this point, if it were to go through, and I think that's the issue, the language is written so rigidly, it would go back to the state legislature to decide how that looks. So if it was a woman at risk, whether she had been raped, or we know a lot of women have cancer, and it would be an option for them to have the child or not to have chemotherapy, none of those things would be taken into account. And so that's one of the issues as well. The way that it's written is so rigid that it does not allow for that. So it would require more legislation to decide how do we come up with the criteria for whether a woman should have an abortion or not. So it really gets dicey.
Especially when you have a legislature that leans one way versus the other, because and then you input in people's religious beliefs. And so that adds a whole nother monkey wrench into the system, or into a woman's uterus, rather, not allowing her to make her own decisions.
So, I mean, so many things going. You have the religious perspective. Then, my husband and I were talking about this a while back. There was a case, it was a couple of years ago, I think, and I forgot. I want to say it was in Florida, where there's a man who had fathered a number of children, wasn't paying child support or anything. The judge said, well, that he should, have a vasectomy. And it was actually taken up in the court. And, so that could even open up a case where if lawmakers or judge feels justified, then, we just start mandating abortions for you for whatever. It just opens up.
Here's my question about
dangerous territory.
The Amendment 1, and I've seen, and this is the thing it's a little interesting to me. So in front of a lot of churches, I've seen vote yes on 1, but what happened to the separation of church and state, and what happened to not being able to talk about governmental issues in the pulpit? I'm a little confused and a little concerned about this, because in front of a lot of churches, there's signs. I mean, lots and lots and lots of signs. And how does that work? Doesn't that affect their tax-paying pride?
Well, I don't know if they're doing it through different organizations, so it may not be directly tied with that if they're advocating, or just they may use it as giving information, but they are not supposed to take a political
Well, there's a lot of
stance.
churches in Nashville that have taken this political stance. And
Right.
somebody needs to, I don't know is it because it's an amendment they can talk about it, and maybe they can't support a candidate.
Right,
I don't know
think
how this
when it
works.
gets to candidates, it's a little bit more.
It's a little dicey.
Yeah, you have to watch that. What I always going to say too, I feel like it's a false argument because people talk about religion, but what we're looking at here is just whether government should expand more or not. And it, personally, I don't believe in abortion, but what we're talking about here is the government's right to come in and say, I think you should do this, this, and this. And then it targets a specific group of people. So it's one thing if we try to regulate all of it, but here we're trying to focus on just on women. So I think that's the concern. And when you think about how women, their rights have evolved over time, we usually have less rights. We account for over more than 51 or 52% of the population, whether we talk about nationally or we talk about at a local level. So I think that is the concern, that we're allowing a majority white, tends to be male-dominated type of legislator to make
mostly men.
Yeah, making these decisions.
I mean,
so I think that's the concern there. And
should
so
this even be in the political realm?
It
though?
should not.
No, this was brought up by U.S. State Representative Diane Black, and so and it's interesting as a woman who brought this up. One of the other things that I always find interesting is that we hear one side wants less government, but now you want more government when it's dealing
when it works towards what you
right.
believe
Why do you
and
want
think.
more government in my private medical decisions, but you want less government when there's other things, other social ills out here that we need to deal with?
Yeah, it's way too intrusive. And I think that's the issue. And so I think it can get dicey. I know for people that are religious, and, I consider myself a spiritual person. But what we're looking at here, like we said, it's not even an issue of religion. It's, does government expand and they tell what a woman to do with her uterus, or do we let people just make their own personal choices and not even get involved in that or even have that discussion? I feel like it's a discussion that we really shouldn't even be having.
Well, I know Dr. Pastor Judy Cummings wrote a very pointed and I believe so appropriately, cleverly stated open letter or to the Tennessean, or well, obviously to the readers, but in the Tennessean. And as a senior pastor and as a woman and as a mother, you know, she's responsible for upholding the Bible and its teachings. And even she said, kind of like you just said, I'm not saying that I'm pro-abortion, but I am in favor of allowing a woman to have her right to decide for her body, and whether it be with her husband or herself, her partner, whomever it might be. It's a woman's choice, not a politician's. And one of the things we did, just going to take a listen in, our news correspondent Chantel Copeland went out on the streets, and we wanted to see what a lot of other people had to think about this, because we obviously have our opinions and we are hearing a lot from our lawmakers, but a lot of folks, and I know there was even one man that she spoke with who they feel quite strongly about this case. And we're going to listen in to one of those here just a second.
No, I think a woman's body is her own decision to make, no matter what, no matter what crisis she's put in, whether it's a rape decision or whether she just decides she's too young or don't want to deal with a baby or a mistake that she's made. So I think that should be a personal decision that a woman should have the right to make. A government should not have to control everything that we do. So I think that's just crazy. See, even where that come from? How would that even get to be a government decision? Who would make? Is when I walk into a clinic and we have to put it through Congress or something. She has to. I mean, how does that even happen? So I would love to know how that process would even happen.
Nope. Period. It's her body. I think it should be more of a healthcare type of thing, because I've known of young ladies using it as birth control. It should be the healthcare and in the medical records that, okay, you done had 5, okay, you to the limit. You might want to try something else, but as far as government, Capitol Hill telling a woman what to do with her body, no.
And the one woman brought up a really good point, and that's obviously a point of argument that a lot of lawmakers are using, that some women or people, not just women, they use it as birth control. How do we handle this, Erica? And who should handle this?
Well, I think too, another piece that we have to recognize is that there is information provided where we inform students. I know I have a daughter at Martin Luther King, and I thought it was really interesting. She told me in her wellness class, she said, our teacher said, we're not going to talk about religion here, but that they had 3 or 4 scenarios. And one was, just to kind of give a quick overview to speak to this point, one of the scenarios was, it was a young lady, her father was very religious, and so he never talked to her about sex because her mother had passed away and she was going away to college. And so when she went away to college, because her father never talked to her about sex, she fell in love with a young man. And the father told her before she left, if you have a child out of wedlock, don't think about coming back home. This was the scenario. So she goes to college. She falls in love with this guy. And she falls in love with the guy. And then, she gets pregnant, so she doesn't know what to do. She asks the guy for money in the scenario, and he says, no, I'm not giving you money for that. I don't even have money like that. So she asks her best friend for the money, and her best friend says, I don't support that. I can't give you money for that. And, of course, we know she could not ask her father. So it's interesting. She sees this woman. They said the woman in the scenario used to be a woman that was kind of worldly, and she was known for making up potions to give to young people to do away with babies.
Oh, my.
And so she gave it to the young lady, and of course, in the end of the scenario, the young lady died. So they were asked to evaluate, who was most at fault. Was it the father? Was it the young lady? And so that's what they kind of just done with that. But so the point is, in schools, they're talking about sexual education and making people more informed. Out in the community, we're doing more with condoms and talking about pills. And some women do. We don't want women to use that as a form of birth control, an abortion, but they do. But the point is, it's not up for us to do. And I share the point about the scenario because if it becomes illegal, what can happen is a lot of women find themselves very compromised in trying to resolve it, and they go to those,
Extremes.
If you drink something,
like you said last show, in the back of the kitchen,
you don't want that,
that's dangerous.
Coat hanger abortions where they're not sanitary, and there are no regulations,
right.
in terms of sanitary situations. One of the things that I thought was interesting in the first woman that you interviewed, Chantel, was the fact that she said, how do these things happen? How do these even get to the, because
Come on,
people
Lainey.
aren't informed voters. You have got to get involved. And it's so important. These midterm elections are more important than the presidential elections because these are what affect you on a day-to-day basis. Speaking of which, early voting has started. And
Come on, Lainey, because I had just pulled up the dates right. You said we are on the same
early
wavelength,
voting
honey.
has started in Tennessee. We've had over 100,000 people already early vote because people are realizing that this is important. And these are the elections. Midterm elections have been notoriously lacking in the African American and minority vote.
Right.
You know, we get out there and we vote for president, but we don't think about voting for who's going to be judge and who's going to be in the legislature. These are the elections that we need to vote on because if we had voted, maybe certain things like these issues in Amendment 1 aren't things that we'd be voting on. We'd be voting on other things that are more important and more pertinent to what we need to make this a better society on a day-to-day
they
basis.
keep on bringing this back. This has been an issue since like 98. It's gone to court, and so they continue to bring it back. And I think you speak to a very important point of women becoming involved. We account for over 51%, but when you look at us as it is reflected in an elected office, there's not many women. Or if you look at women in Tennessee specifically, African-American women are pretty active. But if you look at women in general, the numbers are very low. So we're not active and engaged in those things. Government affects us from everything from the lights are regulated to our bodies, and we're trying to control what part of our body should be regulated. So we have to get out. We have to get involved, and we can't say, oh, I got to, cook dinner. Or I got to pick my kids up. I just don't have the time. We really have to make time.
And that's the beauty of early voting. You can say, I've got to cook dinner. I've got to pick up my kids. There's no excuse.
Because you
You've
really
got
can
a
go,
long time. A
vote
lot
whenever.
of states do not have early voting. We have been blessed with this opportunity to get out and vote. And I mean, all day long, you've got from, I believe the polls open. They open early.
I
in the
got
morning.
you covered.
Yes,
I
go
got
ahead.
you
Come on,
covered.
yes. Come on
now,
with it.
early voting, as we said, already started, and it ends October 30th. That's just for early voting. Okay, Remember, Election Day is November 4th. I got it right.
So we have 10 more days to early vote.
And the polls right now are open from 8 until 5:30 p.m. Now, for right now, today is the last day where you can only vote at the Howard School Building. But from tomorrow through October 30th, you can go to any of the satellite locations. And I'm just going to list those real quick. The satellite locations are Belmead City Hall, Bellevue Community Center, Bordeaux Library, Casa Asafran Community Center, Crossings Event Center, Edmondson Pike Library, Goodlettsville City Hall, Green Hills Library, Hermitage Library, and Madison Library. And again, the polls there, you can start voting in those places tomorrow.
Did you say Bordeaux?
Through the
Yeah,
third. I'm sorry. You asked me about which location?
Did you say Bordeaux?
You said Bordeaux?
Uh-huh.
Bordeaux. Yes, I did say Bordeaux.
Bordeaux.
Library,
Okay,
as
good
we
job.
emphasized.
Please make sure
That
that you
area.
have
Good.
your ID
Yes.
with you because Tennessee is now one of those states that where you need your ID to vote, or else you can fill out a provisional ballot and then your vote will be counted. I'm not exactly after, which doesn't really
Yeah.
make any sense after all the decisions have made. So, and I think there is a policy where you can go get an ID at a low cost or for free. Just it's not a driver's license, it's just a state ID so that you can actually go vote. And if you need more information on that, you can go visit the Tennessee Election Commission online or the I can't think of the other name of it. We'll have the website. We'll tweet it out and we will post it on our Facebook page. But feel free to, come join our Facebook page because we've got a lot of good information on there.
Vote, 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 vote. If you just happen to stop by Bordeaux Library, that's awesome. We know that you can vote there. But we want you to go any place else just to make sure that your vote is heard. And we want to thank you so much, Councilwoman Gilmore, for stopping by.
Thank you.
And this just emphasizes why you not only need to vote, but you need to know whom you're voting for.
Yes, and
because
what
you want
you're
someone
voting.
to represent your perspective.
Also, I just wanted to, if I could, just share with people that want to give of their time. I've been asked to share this information. If people could just give 10 to 15 minutes of their presence at the Defeat Amendment 1 office. It's located at 1900 Church Street, Suite 305, and they're open from 10 to 4. And once again, it's just helping to inform voters so that they'll know what decisions that they have to make and providing them with the tools to make those. And once again, it's from 10 to 4, 1900 Church Street, Suite 305, and that's the Vote No on Amendment 1. Excuse me, got a little turn around there. And so that's their headquarters.
If you could, make sure you send us that information
I
so
will.
we can get that information out and share that. And again, a very important topic. You do have opportunity to vote. And we always love having you on, Councilwoman Gilmore. We thank you
It's
so
always
much.
good to be here, and I appreciate all you do for the community. You're a lady out and about of the community, so we need people to know that. Always giving them your time, so it's greatly appreciated. And we appreciate what you do for women and making it fly,
Well,
pumps in politics. Hey, not just politics. But
Right.
do it with the pumps. So I
it
love
takes
that.
one to know one. You
Yeah.
can't see us in the community unless you're out there yourself. So we
Yeah.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much,
for
ladies.
stopping
Thank you.
by.
Thank you.
So that was one of our big headlines, but we have there is some other news that is making its way to you. And for our headlines, we're going to toss it over to our news correspondent, Chantel Copeland. Chantel, what's going on?
Good morning, ladies, and good morning to all of you listening in to this week's Pumps and Politics. I'm Chantel Copeland, coming with the latest news that's happening around you. First up, State Senator Jim Somerville has once again been arrested. Not once, but twice over the weekend. In September, Somerville was charged with public intoxication after police said he sat in several of his neighbors' yards drinking. The new charges of stalking, which took place on Friday, and the assault on Saturday, come from a neighbor who previously filed several intimidation reports. According to Dixon Police, Somerville was released on a $10,000 bond. He has also received bond conditions that restrict him from having any contact with the neighbor who filed the charges. On another note, an American doctor who contracted and recovered from the Ebola virus while treating patients in Liberia will speak at a Louisville church next month. Dr. Kent Brantley, who made a full recovery at Emory Hospital in Atlanta, will be present at a Missions Health Conference at Southeast Christian Church. The conference is expected to attract thousands of medical professionals, missionaries, and students. The date is set for November 6th. Also in reference to the Ebola virus, according to the World Health Organization, Nigeria has officially been declared Ebola-free after 6 weeks with no new cases. The last reported case was discovered on September 5th. The Nigerian representative for who says the outbreak in Nigeria has been defeated. The virus is gone for now. In another development, U.S. health officials say most of the people quarantined after coming into contact with Ebola victim Thomas Eric Duncan has been given the all clear. The 21-day monitoring period applied to about 50 people. Now, don't forget, 2 nurses at the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas became infected with Ebola after treating Mr. Duncan, who was from Liberia. He died on October 8th. On Sunday, the Pentagon announced it would prepare a 30-person rapid reaction medical support team that could provide help to civilian doctors in the U.S. confronted with possible Ebola cases. For lighter news, Goodbye Wallet and Hello iPhone Apple Pay. According to CNBC, Apple officially launches Apple Pay, which is the new mobile payment service that allows users to buy goods with their smartphones. Apple is betting consumers will no longer want to carry their wallets, credit cards, or cash. Your weather for today consists of partly cloudy skies with a high of 69 degrees. Tonight there is a 20% chance of rain and a low of 48. Tomorrow will be sunny but a little chilly with a high of 67. Currently, it's 47 degrees. For Pumps and Politics, I'm Chantel Copeland.
Thank you, Chantel. For Pumps and Politics News.
Forgot we have to say it like that now. Pumps
yes, she
and
totally
politics.
changed the game. So, no doubt, Lainey, we've got to stay on Amendment 1. That's a pretty...
That's definitely something that we need to talk about a little bit more. And Amendment 2, they're talking about judges, and we have to get the clarification, and maybe we can get somebody on to talk to us about Amendment 2. It has to do with the Tennessee judicial selection and whether or not, I guess, judges can be appointed or they have to be elected. I believe that's what it means. I'm not exactly sure. So we'll definitely get some more on that. I think Amendment 3 is Amendment 3 or Amendment 4. One of them has to do with gambling and gaming. No, Amendment 3 is taxes. Amendment 4 is gambling and gaming for nonprofits, which I thought that they had already covered, because I remember when I first moved to Tennessee, they had the duck race where they threw all the little duckies and you had a number and they threw them all in the Cumberland, and if your duck was the first one across you won some type of prize, and it was for like a nonprofit. But then what they did was they said that they couldn't do it because that was considered gambling. And so I think that they're revisiting that to make sure that nonprofits can still hold lotteries or any type of little gaming things, you know, to bolster their profits for the nonprofit. So there are a lot of four different amendments that we really do need to talk about. And I think that part of the problem with some of the amendments is it's the language. People, you know, we have to dissect the language. And a lot of people get confused because they'll read it and reread it and they're like, well, am I supposed to vote no or am I supposed to vote yes? I know exactly what I want to say, but I don't know when it has to do with what's actually on the ballot. So, yeah, maybe we can get a couple of other people in here to dissect the language.
A lot more to come on those. Very important amendments, some things that can really cause some major shifts. So we'll be keeping our eye on that. And again, don't forget to early vote. We'll have that information coming up for you here again in just a second. But some other things to discuss as we go into our round robin very quickly, which we can take our time just a little bit. Okay, no, we can't. Okay, so one of the headlines, they just brought it up there just a second ago. There was a report that came out a couple of days ago that says that there was some blood found in the Ferguson police officer's car.
Oh.
Remember, he had said he was in fear of his life. There was an physical altercation between he and Michael Brown, which led him in fear of his life. Now, still doesn't necessarily explain him, you know, Michael Brown running off and then still
his
being
hands
shot.
being up and being shot.
You know, your thoughts about that?
There's going to be a whole lot that we have to discuss on. I mean, and it's kind of like an onion, and as the layers start to come away and they start to peel away, we're going to get to the core of this, hopefully. And I mean, at the end of the day, Darren Wilson still has not been charged with anything.
Yes, so there's a lot of fact finding, a lot of evidence
still
coming to the surface, but well, I mean, again, we'll take that up at a later point. Just wondering, is that a little bit of dragging the feet, letting it die down, so we don't have to respond, or are they really being as thorough as I say they are? Speaking of thorough, the Vatican had a very important meeting. They had a meeting of the bigwigs, if you say, and they took up a very important topic, Lainey. They were discussing gays in the church, and out of their report, they said the language was very vague and general, but it did say that in terms of gays in the church, in the Catholic Church, they should be welcomed with respect and sensitivity, and that discrimination against gays is to be avoided.
Well, I mean, that goes back to the whole thing: love the sin or hate the sin. I mean, there's so many other topics and so many other issues that need to be front and center. And whether somebody, you know, chooses to love someone else, that, to me, that's just a lot of muck that we get stuck in, you know, and it's a lot of smokescreen because there's a lot of other issues that we need, especially the Catholic Church, that needs to deal with.
Yes, it is. And it's interesting, the positioning of this argument when you look at the Catholic Church has been probably the most heavy-handed when it comes to gays in the church, regardless of what faith. They've been pretty prominent and dominant with that. But then also, as we consider these sexual accusations of a lot of the priests against young boys.
Well, this Pope is a different kind of Pope. He's a different thinking kind of Pope. He understands that there are other issues that require a whole lot more attention, and this is not one of them.
Very open-minded, as you said. So one of the other quick things to talk about, the National Association of Black Journalists, the largest minority journalism organization in the world, has its annual conference every year. Well, and one of the biggest financial supporters is CNN to get the convention going, which is huge. It is the largest money-making engine for the organization, and the organization serves as a watchdog, as an advocate, if you will, for African Americans in journalism and for African Americans represented in the media. Well, they recently had a round of layoffs, and
8% of their media.
They already have a small number of African Americans in management positions. Well, all but I think one or two were included in that. And so Bob Butler, NABJ national president, spoke out about that, saying, hey, we've been knocking at your door for a little while about some minority representation concerns. We're even more worried now. Well, just a couple of days later, CNN pulled its financial support from the NABJ convention this year. And so the question is, was that in response to NABJ kind of pulling their slip or what?
Well, I mean, seems pretty obvious. I mean, and they could also say, I mean, in CNN's defense, they can say, you know what, we laid off all these people because we're losing money. And so being able to financially support and a whole conference is expensive. So
that is one of the arguments that's kind of going around. Like, we don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. But one of the arguments people are making, look, you can't criticize somebody and then go ask them for some money.
Exactly.
You know, so regardless why, you know, oh, well, you just kind of put yourself out there. One of the other things I thought was funny, this is just me. So President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama are out on a little dinner date.
So cute.
Right.
This
and
is
his
really
credit
cute.
card is declined. First of all, who else was shocked besides me that he's actually like
paying?
Right.
Like,
I can't.
I never even thought
you know.
that, like, when he went out to dinner or took his wife out to dinner, he actually had to pay. It never even registered to
know.
me. But he was saying that because he doesn't use his credit card a whole lot, they thought it was a fraudulent charge. But you know what? Michelle put on her cape, whipped out her credit card, because clearly Michelle is using her credit card.
That's exactly what I said. We know
Clearly
who's using the
Michelle
card.
is using her card. So Michelle whipped out her cape, whipped out her card, paid for dinner, and they went on their merry way, which I thought was very sweet
That
and
was
cute.
hilarious because we all know that they can clearly afford dinner, and if not,
Right.
somebody's gonna back it. What I thought, two things I thought were interesting. Like you said, first of all, Michelle Obama's card is clearly quite active, so no problem there. But secondly, like, who charges the president for dinner?
Right.
You know, I feel like, you know, and regardless of your party, I feel thank you enough. You know,
right.
dinner's
Thank
on
you for
me.
coming to my establishment, you know?
And who would walk up to the table, President, your card's
Your
declined.
card's been declined. I
You
would have
know?
just been like, you know what? This meal has been comped and you all are good.
I wouldn't have even said anything. Right. I would have just, like you said, just said it's, I don't know. When it comes to correcting people or calling people out, I'm a little, you know, like in public like that.
A little leery about stuff like that.
Yeah. But I
You
guess
know?
he needed
What
to
was-
know.
So what was her tip like? Or his tip, the waiter's tip?
That's interesting. Now, see, they didn't put that out there. They didn't say
Right.
how much they were tipped, but that the president's car was
Oh, I'm
declined.
sure that they had to tip them well, or else that would have been put out there. You know, people, they like to slander and, you know, anytime that they can. So, but I'm sure that they gave them a nice tip.
And I'm going to go ahead and squeeze this one in. I haven't been watching, but I haven't been given the rap by our producer yet, so let me squeeze this one in. We've got to get, and I had to get the other ones in before we got to Scandal.
But
and
we didn't talk about the Great Pumpkin Cake.
Oh, we sure didn't.
at
Okay,
Keene
hit that one real
University.
quick.
So
And don't
they
look
have
at
a
Alicia
big-
because she's going to give us
Yeah.
the rap. Go ahead.
They have a big pumpkin festival at Keene College in New Hampshire, I believe it is. And the whole student body, well, I can't say the whole student body, but they went crazy. They had 232 police calls, which was kind of interesting. There was rioting, there was fires, they overturned.
Throwing of skateboards
They
and
threw
pumpkins and
beer bottles at the police. Beer
30
bottles,
people
beer
injured.
cans, you know, and so what was interesting was the backlash on Twitter and how, you know, people were like, these thugs, you know, they turned it around because Keene is notoriously it is a Caucasian community, you know, and the school is primarily Caucasian, but people turned it around, you know, the way people were talking about the protesters in Ferguson. And so they turned it around. They were like these thugs, and they had a picture of a guy standing on top of an overturned car, and he had like his hands were doing something, and they were like, he's throwing up gang symbols, and these are gangbangers and everything, just because they wanted to show the how the media doesn't focus on the same things when it's, you know, different races are, you know,
And if you look
in
at-
comparative situations.
When you looked at the pictures in the video, it looked a lot like Ferguson.
Oh, yeah,
the
it looked
nighttime
worse.
lights and the tear gas and all of that, or the smoke, whatever.
Who
It
knew
was-
that pumpkins could cause such a melee?
Well, I don't know. Then I don't know, Lainey.
I-
Whatever
so-
set you off. Speaking of set you
so-
off, Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder. We gotta do it real quick because I feel
Okay.
her looking. Let me just say this: Scandal, love me some Scandal. I really do not. I'm so not interested. Shonda, please hear me. Hopefully, you're listening to Pumps Politics.
please not
If
bring-
we go back into the Fitz Olivia relationship, I may just have to stop watching Scandal. I think we've evolved past that, and that's like.
Yeah,
I'm over that.
I'm not.
I'm over it.
That was my Facebook post. I was like, no,
Yeah.
we're done. I think everybody is pretty much
Yeah.
done, because I feel like in this Scandal, it's like a new Liv. Like she's back
Yes.
to the
Yes.
original Liv, where she's doing her thing and getting things done. And I actually like Liv and Jake together because Jake
too.
kind of pulls her hair a little bit, you know, and doesn't
keeps
let her
her in check.
Yeah, he doesn't let her get away with stuff, and I kind of like that, you know. So
He's the only one.
But now Daddy Pope is going after Jake, and this is just a problem. And
That twist in the end, that
oh
was
my
good.
goodness.
Yeah.
Tom,
He
you
ain't-
let me down.
I like Tom though. Like, so who really killed? Who was really behind the president's son's murder. We'll see.
Daddy Pope.
How to Get Away with Murder. Can we talk about that real quickly?
We can.
Let's also notice the parallels that you have powerful black women who are in relationships with white men. I'm just saying, just point that out as we discuss that.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
but-
I mean, yeah, I think what it is Shonda likes to push those barriers,
And
and we constantly
and
we
spark
see
conversation.
in real life. We see a lot of powerful black men with white women,
Yeah.
and so I think that she likes to do the opposite. I mean, and she has pushed the barriers on this show, especially with
She
same
really
sex
has.
relationships. She has
Yeah.
really just like put
She's
it
hit
in
all
your
the hot
face.
button issues in a very eloquent and creative and entertaining way.
Absolutely.
It's not really offensive, but if it does offend you a little bit, I think that's the point. She's really putting a lot of things in your
One
face.
of the things that me and my girlfriends discussed this weekend was the fact that Shonda had Viola Davis take off that wig, take off her makeup, take off those eyelashes. She did what black women do every day, and it was so real to watch because you kind of embody that. You're like, yes, this is exactly what happens.
That's the thing
'Cause
about her
sometimes you have to
shows, they're
take that
real.
mask off and then deal with the situation. But those last 9 words, honey.
Well, okay. Speaking of last words, these are my last words. I have to go back and start from the beginning, from the first episode of How to Get Away with Murder, because after the second episode, I got really She does it well on Scandal, but on How to Get Away with Murder, the back and forth.
This is you got to really
I
pay
get lost in
attention
that.
on this.
Yeah,
and
so
I don't
we'll
know if any of the rest of y'all watch it, but I just started watching The Walking Dead, so y'all gonna have to start watching that
I've
so
seen
we can
your
talk
post.
about it.
I'm a clue in there. So we're going to wrap it up right now before we really, really get in trouble. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Lainey, thank you so much for
great
finally
show.
waking up and being with us today.
I'm here.
We're going to take up a number of great topics next week. Don't forget early voting, 8 a.m. to 5:30. Starting tomorrow, go to the satellite locations. Also, visit us on Facebook and Twitter. And be sure to tune in tomorrow at 3 o'clock for the 2 hours of power. The bench press is coming your way, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Talk to you later.